In 1966, England won the World Cup, and that victory, that single, golden, never-to-be-repeated victory, slowly destroyed English football for the next 50 years. I know, you want to argue with me. Good, stay there. Picture Alf Ramsey in the dugout at Wembley. No wingers, flat midfield. Every player with a specific job, a specific zone, a specific instruction. This wasn't pretty football. Nobody was going home humming the highlights, but it was correct. Ramsey looked at the players he had and built a system that extracted the maximum from exactly those players in exactly that moment of football history. That is genuinely great management. That is reading the game, and England won. Here is where the tragedy begins. When something works, really works, people stop asking why it worked. They just repeat it. Ramsey's system wasn't a universal truth. It was a specific solution to a specific problem. But 3 generations of English coaches looked at 1966 and didn't see a context. They saw a gospel, the flat back 4, the disciplined midfield, the functional, organized, defensively secure shape, not because it was always right, because it once was. Now here is the part that most people miss, and this is important. Ramsey was actually correct. If England in 1966 had tried to play like Brazil, fluid, expressive, technically brilliant, they would have finished worse than Brazil. And Brazil that year were knocked out in the group stage. Pelé kicked off the pitch. The team physically dismantled by Portugal and Bulgaria. England without Ramsey's structure? They don't make the knockouts. They go home early, they win nothing. So Ramsey read the room perfectly. He knew what his players could do. He knew what the tournament demanded. He was right. The problem was never Alf Ramsey. The problem was what happened after Ramsey. Football moves, it always moves. The game in 1974 was different from 1966. The game in 1986 was different again. Total football happened, the pressing revolution happened, the world kept asking new questions. But England, it kept giving the 1966 answer. Not because English coaches were stupid, but because the 1966 answer had a trophy attached to it. And trophies are very hard to argue with. So when a young coach suggested something different, a different shape, a different idea, a different question, somewhere in the background was always 1966 saying, but we know what works. That's not a football philosophy. That's nostalgia wearing a tracksuit. The real deficiency of English football isn't the players. It isn't the Premier League. It isn't even the coaching. It's the unwillingness to engage with the abstract, to think theoretically about the game, to ask not just what works, but why it works, when it works, and when it stops working. Argentina does this, Brazil does this, Germany built an entire youth system around doing this after their humiliation at Euro 2000. England keeps pointing at a trophy from 1966 and wondering why the rest of the world moved on. The worst thing that ever happened to English football was winning the World Cup. Not because winning is bad, but because they won exactly once, just enough to believe they already knew the answer. One trophy, one system, 50 years of the wrong question. The World Cup starts in June. England will walk out with a shape, a system, and a plan. And somewhere in the formation, in the midfield structure, in the decisions Tuchel makes, 1966 will still be in the room. Watch for it.